Welcome to Deep Dive Film School. I'm Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Pulcher.
And if you like what you see / hear, please like and subscribe. You can find us in all the spaces and places that people what?
Find good media. That's right. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Those are our most active platforms, so please join us there. This week we got a special episode. We got a forgotten gem. We haven't done one of these in a little while. We are going with Kathryn Bigelow's 1995 film, Strange Days. Now, this is one that it's always grasped me for some reason. I'm sure we'll talk about those reasons.
Yes.
I don't think I ever realized James Cameron wrote the movie. Which
I didn't
is
realize
her
that
husband.
either. Yeah, at the time,
but,
yeah.
you know, she fucking stands the test of time. She's one of the most solid directors in Hollywood for decades. She's got a huge, diverse catalog of pretty high quality shit. You know, Point Break, Hurt Locker, Near Dark, Zero Dark 30. I mean, she kind of just kept doing the dark thing, like
yeah, totally.
Point Dark and the Dark Locker.
The Dark Locker.
Kathryn,
Dark
we
should probably workshop some of these titles.
We know you're dark.
No, for sure. Well, and what's interesting is that
kind of gets pushed under the rug a little.
I mean, in part, this film, they talk about almost derailed her career. Because it didn't even come close to recouping its losses.
Sure. I mean, it's a big project.
Definitely. And I think it is one that it's really...
Did it come out at the wrong time?
I don't think so. I mean, that's what's weird about it is I was looking at this and, you know, it's crazy that this movie flopped. It came out a year after Pulp Fiction, a month after Seven. It seems like the world was primed for the dark.
Awesome cast.
Yeah, well, and the material,
yeah.
You would think. But I would say that the real science fiction renaissance of the 90s started in 97 with Fifth Element, and then you had other movies
Hackers
that were sort of like sci-fi and stuff around belief and identity.
Lost in it, like the Stir of Echoes kind of like came out the same year as Sixth Sense or like whatever.
Totally, and I think if it had come out, I mean, think about it, 99 is when The Matrix came out. Mm-hmm. If this had come out sometime after that or right around that, it probably would have blown up because it's very much about the same ideas.
Which is a cyberpunk thing, I think, Y2K. And just
totally.
The whole theme of, technology and the turn of the century and all that stuff. But do you remember the trailer for this movie? I remember watching it in theaters, and it was like this MTV-styled thing. And we'll show a clip of it here, but it's like colored backgrounds, and Lenny's breaking the fourth wall, and he's talking about feeling the adrenaline pumping in your veins, and I'm the Santa Claus of the subconscious and all of this stuff, and I'm just like, what is this movie about? I don't even know what it's about, but it's just like, it's basically him like selling
like
this
Train
drug.
Spotting or something. Yeah.
Kind of like it's but it's not in the movie. A couple of the lines from the trailer are in the movie, but this is a totally different take on it. Anyways, it always captured my imagination with it, and then you kind of get into what this movie's about. He's a ex-cop who's kind of we get this insane opening scene where we get this POV of somebody robbing. What is it? Is it a restaurant?
They're like taking hostages, and it's like a restaurant,
yeah.
and it's like a heist kind of a thing.
Yeah, but the whole idea of the stuff is being jacked in, synced in, booted up, or there's a million different terms that they call it inside of here, but it's essentially you're reliving something that somebody did as they recorded wearing this.
Feeling what they felt.
Smelling it.
Smelling what they smell. Hearing what they hear,
doing pretty much anything. And, that's a huge, huge concept on its own.
Yeah.
But it's so intense. In this opening one, the person ends up dying, and we get Lenny throwing off the headset. Saying,
and that's when we first meet him.
Yeah, like, dude, I don't like snuff shit. Like,
yeah.
Why don't you tell me? Like, it's like, he kind of gets into he wants real life, not street. He wants real life and street life. He doesn't want any of that shit, and he's like, he wants the stuff that people want to see. And he's a salesman. He's an artist. He has ethics.
Right. Oh, he's a black market salesman that has like his own code.
But like any technology like this, the first thing it does is get perversed, right? Yep. And so you have a whole black market of this. People want to watch people die in an accident or kill their boss, or what does he say, hang out with that girl for the right 20 minutes or whatever it is,
right.
Like, I think the first like obvious white guy like trying to buy this in this sketchy bar, he shows him a girl an 18-year-old showering.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
all it is. But
and the guy starts like rubbing
doesn't,
himself.
he's sold.
Yeah.
Porn obviously is going to take this over at some point.
Yeah, like anything, like any good technology does. Like
right.
porn is going to be at the forefront.
The innovator.
And I think that it's really interesting. The other themes that were happening when this movie came out. If you think that in '95,
pre 9/11,
it's pre 9/11. There's all this talk in the movie of the changing of the millennia being the end of history, the end of time, and that is what people were saying about the millennia. Again, pre 9/11, like what else can possibly happen? Like we are in this new age, right? And there's a lot of paranoia that comes along with that. But there's also, we have to remember that in 95, I mean, we're still reeling from the Rodney King videotape and the subsequent LA riots, right? Because that was only a couple of years before. And so this idea of that these different moments that might be recorded could change history becomes a subplot in this of, and what's interesting is that one of the subplots in this movie is the murder and the unsolved murder of this really famous rapper,
Jericho 1.
And what's really interesting
it's a
is
game-related murder, Adam. Come on.
And that this predates both Biggie and Tupac's death, right? And so you're like, oh yeah, this movie was like really at this touchstone of all of these other things that were happening at that period of time, of the violence of the police, of people feeling like that there are still events that are taking place that humanity needs to know about that are being swept under the rug.
I still absolutely fucking love this movie.
Yeah.
It's so fun. There's some dumb shit about it, of course. And
there's stuff that aged poorly, but there's just as much that aged wonderfully.
Exactly. Yeah. And like the concept itself is very out there. We even had a similar concept for a pilot that we wrote. I think there's a lot of stuff to grab on here. Like there's a lot going on. It brings the fucking heat in this movie. And whether it's the racial tensions, LAPD, all of that stuff, what you're talking about, like the world that, he's driving through is distraught, like there's tanks now. Granted, it's 2 days from the last day of the century. And for some reason, everyone freaked out because numbers were changing, that the world is going to change too.
Yeah.
I remember that, and I lived through that, and nothing ever happened.
Same.
But there's tanks in the street, and the world has just outdone itself.
Yep.
It's at a breaking point.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect excuse for it to break. So all of this stuff is culminating. I love as he's driving through this first time, and we're kind of getting a view of the world, and she built such an awesome world here. We get this radio host kind of talking, and we're getting the different opinions, like, what are we celebrating for? It's awful out there.
Yeah.
You get the religious lady who warns people of the apocalypse, and this is my favorite line. I quote this all the time. When she calls up and she says, the apocalypse is happening at midnight at the turn of the century.
Yeah.
And the host is like, so is that LA time or is that Eastern Standard Time in China? Like, what are we talking about here?
Where's God at? Yeah, exactly.
When exactly is this happening? Just like a brilliant, cut off to exactly just counter argument to what her bullshit is. But you see both sides of it, and just kind of brilliant. But
now the other
lot going on.
The other thing that I think is really interesting is that as much as this is steeped in science fiction, it's also a very noir style story. We have so many red herrings,
a lot of puzzle pieces
of who might be good guys and bad guys, what people might be doing what, and there is the lurid aspect in this movie is really like pretty striking.
It's overwhelming.
Like, the amount of really perverse sexuality, of violence, it's and I think that was why a lot of critics didn't like it, which again is surprising to me because I'm like,
Ralph Fiennes is so good here too.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wish he would have just stayed with his regular accent. His American accent isn't amazing. It's a little distracting to me, as are his sideburns. But other than that, like he does do an incredible
it's the 90s,
job.
Man.
I know it's the 90s, but listen. The most unbelievable part of this movie is that anyone would choose Juliette Lewis over Angela Bassett. Let's just get that out front here.
Okay, well, there is a manic pixie dream girl aspect to Juliette Lewis.
Let's talk about her for a minute, because she does such a great. She always does such a great job at being a perfect mix of sexy, seductive, and fucking horrible. Yes. Like all the time, right?
She's
like
good. It's
Natural Born Killers, like anything where it's like she is the ultimate.
You don't know what to think of her.
She's a guilty turn on, right? Where you're like, in a moment you're like, yeah, and then 30 seconds later she does something and you're like, oh, stop it! Like, don't think she's attractive, gross. Like,
no, especially in the '90s, I definitely had a crush on Juliette Lewis. But obviously in retrospect, and honestly, like we're jumping way ahead here, but like the whole Angela Bassett thing, like she's probably one of the coolest characters in the movie.
Oh, easily.
But I never believed for a minute that they were actually like interested in each other, even though they try and give you that at the end. That seemed
it doesn't feel quite as earned as it should be.
I don't want to say unearned. It's just like why throw that in there in the last 5 seconds? Regardless, they're obviously very close. Yeah. They have a tight relationship. None of that romantic stuff ever really gets in the way, other than she keeps coming to save his ass in her limo.
Over and over again.
Mace. Her name's Mace.
And in classic, makes sense that James Cameron wrote it, because in classic James Cameron fashion, it is a strong woman saving a fairly inept man.
She is such a badass.
She is such a badass.
Love her.
And, if you think about it, this time she was fairly unknown, other than the big splash that she had with the Tina Turner biopic, which, again, she's a huge badass in that, too. Yep. But it's interesting to see that, like, this is the next thing that she did. And, God, if it had gone well for her.
I mean, she just got nominated for an Academy Award a couple of years ago, so she's still
totally. But I'm just thinking, like, it's such a different kind of role in terms of that style of movie.
You couldn't make this movie today.
No.
Just the internet alone.
Yeah.
Just the internet alone, and how that would affect some of these things, as far as like the videos going viral or something, right? Like somebody finding something that is as damning as what they find here.
Yeah, it's like, what do we do with it? We have to get it to the people, and it's like, what does that mean? And then again, in a pre sort of internet age, it's like, send it onto like a have it. Yeah, or like somewhere. Have it projected on the side of a skyscraper. It's like, it doesn't
mall rats or something.
It's like it's total mall rats.
The Vincent D'Onofrio and William Fisher are perfectly cast here.
Oh my God.
As the all-time shithead white cops.
Yep.
Chasing a girl through the subway who's 34, 40 years old.
And just like
can you pick two better 90s actors?
Indiscriminately shooting into crowds through the whole movie.
No, we got to cover just a black male. We're looking for him. Can't find him.
Exactly. And you're just like, and they're always in uniform. They might as well be like Terminator 2. They might as well be the cop.
Kind of.
Sort of like,
she does kind of get away into the subway, grabs her hair, and sees that she's been recording this the whole time.
Yeah, she has on one of the squids.
Yeah, so
right?
It's a squid receptor. It's super quantum interference device.
They could have just said it looks like a squid.
Yeah, I don't know. Again,
it looks like a squid.
But we get more into Lenny and his relationship with Faith, and the one that got away, and all of this stuff. And they're like rollerblading on the beach, and you get the sexy moments and all of that stuff. And there's like weird. It's like being John Malkovich in parts.
Sure. Oh, I didn't even thought of that.
Like,
totally.
It's just, there's so many different things going on here. We also have this serial killer mystery going on. He keeps getting sent these envelopes with his name on it, and it shows Iris getting killed, the girl who was being chased, who was his friend, and he's trying to get her something, or other way around.
This is that noir murder mystery aspect to it. Yeah,
but it all bounces right in this world. You know, like the people that are in his life and come in and out of it, what he wants out of it, what he's trying to get for his own advantage, and Mace is the constant kind of emotional gauge through a lot of this. But the Steam budget on this movie was pretty high.
It's definitely. I'm surprised there isn't more saxophone solos.
But they didn't go that far.
But I agree. The killer stuff is so. I mean, the fact that in that first one, you're like, whoa. In those taped things, that the killer, when he rapes and then murders her, that he's put one of the devices on her head so that he's tapping directly into her so that she's feeling herself being killed. I was like, Yeah,
that's deep dark shit.
That is some dark stuff. And those things are really interesting. And I think it's interesting that the movie has that kind of is willing to go that deep into real sort of like creepy, murdery, serial killery vibe, because the movie doesn't feel dark that way. Like it doesn't, like the movie is stylized, but it doesn't feel like Seven. It's not stylized dirty like that, you know?
But if you're going to go in, you have to go all in, right?
Yeah.
If for something like this, a technology like this, you see Lenny working and doing what he does and does best, like selling these people on their dreams and fantasies, right? When he's talking to that Keith guy, it's like sold.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
You know, it's not what he said. It's not like TV, only better. This is life, a piece of somebody's life. You're kinetically synced through brainwaves. You can feel and smell and be there. The forbidden fruit, rob a bank, bang any girl you want. I'm your priest, your shrink, main connection to the switchboard of the soul, the magic man. Like, so
amazing.
You have to, you know how perverse people can get, especially so quickly.
Yeah.
And so even if this was made, you know, I think it was made for the government for some kind of surveillance or something, right? That, and then went super dark, and that's how all of this was created. But it's just like when you're creating a technology like this that is everyone has access to, then you have to kind of go there. You can't not.
You can't partially
you have to
go there.
Dark.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to, but like if you want an entertaining 2.5 hour movie.
Yep. Let's talk about Tom Sizemore's hair.
The ponytail?
It's the most ridiculous look the very first time you see him. And he seems to always be in a tuxedo. Like, it is the wildest look. And I know that, you know,
The ultimate dirtbag.
big twist here. Spoiler alert for a 35-year-old movie or whatever it is. It's a wig. It's a wig that
he's a PI.
Yeah, it's a wig that he's wearing, like in
No.
I mean
Max, you mean?
yes, I mean in world. I mean, you know, canonically it's a wig,
Yes.
as we find out, and this is how he's able to hide his own squid through so much of the movie, because he's always surveilling and recording.
Lenny's buddy, ex-cop too.
So here's my question. He's supposed to be like Lenny's best friend. Mm-hmm. Has he been wearing the wig the whole time? Has he been wearing the wig for like a decade?
I mean,
that's the only thing that I couldn't figure out, where it's like, it's a wig. You know, it's like this sort of a reveal later in the movie that's important for the plot. Oh. And I'm like, he's your best friend. How long has he been wearing that blonde ponytail wig?
I mean, it's a valid question.
Right? That was like something that struck me. I was like, huh. Seems a little funny, but
maybe it wasn't always a ponytail. Maybe it was
and he's
pompadour.
Not, and you don't know that he is who he ends up being by the end of the movie. But
the first time you see it, it is a really surprising twist.
Well, and I think part of it is because they pump up Michael Wincott as being the bad guy. God, he's weird.
He's perfectly weird.
He's so... I said he's one of those guys who was either destined to be a character actor or work at the 7-Eleven by your house. And you're like, I don't want to go in there. Michael's working. You know?
Yeah, it's like Heath Ledger's deadbeat dad or something. Like, I don't know. He's just like, I don't know.
He has that weird voice. And he just
always reminds me of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Or The Crow. I'm always thinking of The Crow.
Yes.
But it does make you wonder, like, you know, they do such a good job of not making his character seem like that he's the red herring. Like, you just assume he's got to be
part of this.
Some part of the main thing.
They keep copying out this, and maybe this is why Lenny didn't realize the ponytail, is that, you know, they're overdoing it with this. They're overloading, like they're freezing their, you know, frying their brain. And, you know, there's a real, like, come to Jesus, like, drug withdrawal moment that Mace and Lenny have, where he, you know, can't think straight anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, and he's obviously fried himself, but he's too deep, he's too far into it.
Yeah.
And she basically just has to like pin him down. And he has a really beautiful line actually in this, where he's like, just because they stop loving you doesn't mean you stop loving them. And I made her a promise that I would protect her. And this really beautiful thing about faith, that you're like, well, that's why he keeps fighting and keeps going this. But the memories that he's attached to isn't reality anymore.
And I think that's one of the most interesting parts about the technology in this movie to me is that, yes, it's super effective and interesting when the serial killer is leaving these discs for Lenny, and then he's jacking in and he's seeing these things. That definitely is effective, but I think the whole subtext of, could you get over a bad breakup if you could keep going back and replaying? And if it means that in those moments your heart is getting the butterflies in it, your skin is getting the goosebumps on it, you feel like that you're kissing this person that no longer cares about you in real life, no wonder you would be so
have false pretenses.
Yeah, or just feel like, and every time that person, and Juliette Lewis says it 100 times to him, like, get over it. I don't care about you anymore. Yeah. He keeps coming back. It makes sense, and I love that. And it reminded me of those moments where Tom Cruise keeps going back and taking the drug to relive moments with his deceased wife in Minority Report, right? That what he's a junkie for is not the drug itself. He's a junkie for these feelings with this person, and this person's gone, right? And like that's, and I'll actually say that my biggest critique in rewatching this movie is around those same lines, which is I respect that they wanted this movie to be a more of a noir mystery thriller that has twists in it, and that we're learning these different things along the way. It would have been, to me, it would have been so much more of an effective third act and climax of this film if that had somehow involved the device. The device becomes really secondary in this third act, whereas a movie that came out a couple of years after Cronenberg's existence continues the mindfuckery of these false realities playing out in the third act until you are like, I don't know what's reality anymore. Yeah. And maybe it's because I've been rewatching all of the Black Mirror episodes, but like that's what I wanted in the third act of this. Is I wanted there to be a cross, double cross, triple cross, whatever, and then somebody's jacked in and they don't know it, and it turns, you know what I mean, and there's more revelations, and it's utilizing the software more.
I actually thought they did a pretty good balance of figuring out who the killer is. They keep, the second one that he gets is the killer approaching him while he's sleeping with a knife to his neck.
Totally. Yeah, like, that's a good one.
If that's not a threat, then I don't know what is.
That's good. And he's colorblind. That's the only thing they know about him, because he can't see, they can see that through his eyes in those moments, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, just all these little clever shit on top of finding the whole police chase, finding the clip of Jericho getting murdered by these cops. It's kind of your class. We finally get to see what Iris was recording, which again, and what they've been chasing through.
So reminiscent of the Rodney King video, right? I mean, it is so like overtly, this person was murdered for no other reason than these cops are on this crazy power trip. And I did think that part was really great. That's kind of what I'm saying, is it's like I wanted the fact that those elements were separate, I think, is an interesting twist. It's a way to not have it be like it's all one big conspiracy, which is what they're leading with for a while. But that was a little bit of a letdown for me, I'd just say.
Yeah, I think they balanced it pretty well, because it did include the device still. It shows the power of the visual image, not only just the visual part, but the emotional, the physical part in this case. I don't know, I thought they did a good job of doing both, although those two stories didn't necessarily have, one was kind of a love triangle and the other was a bigger racial tensions and a bigger social kind of projection of what the world was turning into in those times. So I actually thought they did a pretty good job balancing both of those without being too heavy-handed on one or the other. I mean, this movie ends with the cops basically, getting caught. Angela Bassett, takes him down. It looks like she's the bad guy for a while. She gives over. They end up finding that Jericho 1 footage. She gives it to the commissioner of police, who is really the only one good cop, I guess, in LA or whatever it is. And so she was the perfect delivery person for that, right? And I don't think he would have watched it if it was Lenny who gave it to him.
Totally.
So she had to deliver it. She had to watch it. And multiple things like that they talk about, like the world is swallowing us all, right? And talking about like this is a bomb ready to go off if you show this to people, like you will incite a huge race war. Even Tom Sizemore says it. He's like, "Are you paranoid enough?"
Right.
This thing is a ticking time bomb, and it is. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Especially in America.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. I think I was surprised in rewatching it because I couldn't remember how it really ended. I mean, I can remember the visuals. I remembered how it ended, but I didn't remember that the two threads of the story are fairly disconnected, right? Like that the Lenny plot line and then the cops and the Jericho plot line are really, they're both parallel to each other, but they don't have anything to do with each other, which I think is really interesting.
It's in they're in this. They hang out in the same groups, right? Everything.
Yeah, but you just would assume that it would be connected into one larger theme. But I would say that the climax
being people are terrible.
Well, or that there's a larger conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
That the cops are involved in, and that they also are the same person that whoever the serial killer is, rather than them being separate.
Of course, yeah. And I don't know if I ever thought that was the case in the movie, but the cops obviously admit guilt at the end here. One, Fitchner shooting himself after he gets arrested, and the other one being taken down by firing squad. So,
I love that image. And again, we've talked about this throughout this festival of these different images that transcend the sort of flying car pastiche of cyberpunk into something new and different, and a lot of times surreal, that might not really have anything to do with technology. And this final climactic scene of D'Onofrio, his face covered in blood, dragging his dead partner, who he's handcuffed to, with the gun through the crowd towards her, while all the huge pieces of confetti are landing on him in all these different colors. I was like, that looks like it's pulled right from Akira.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's like this surreal, like powerful, bizarre image.
It's like looks like the worst New Year's party ever.
Totally.
It's like Times Square times a million or something. Like they're just like times 100. Like it just looked terrible. Like traffic alone.
Yeah. let alone the cops beating everyone. Like that also seems horrible.
Yeah.
But it is just great, and I love that. I love those really stark images.
But post George Floyd, this movie I thought is still pretty powerful and relevant. They're still speaking.
That's a really sad truth.
Unfortunately, Like but like seeing this after that, there's still a lot of relevance to what they're saying. Some of the stuff they're doing, it's an oldest tale. It's a tale as old as time, right?
Right. Exactly.
It's just unfortunate, but yeah.
Last thing I'll say, the action set piece where the cops corner Lenny and Mace in her limo, shoot it up, but she has bulletproof windows.
That's right.
Light it on fire.
Drive it into
and she drives it into the lake and then swims to the bottom and gets her shotgun and shoots them out of the trunk. I was like, that's the coolest,
so cool, like
action set piece where not like the stunts that happen aren't like a lame long chase scene. They're stopped, right? And you're like, what's going to happen next? And then you're like, oh, that's worse. What's going to happen next? Oh, that's worse. It felt like classic Indiana Jones to me or something, right? It was just like it keeps upping the ante in the most ridiculous way until she finally drives them into the lake.
She is probably the most forgotten part of this movie, but one of the best parts of the movie.
Oh, one of the strongest.
Her character, what a great, strong female character. You can always count on Mace, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's just, and that's why I was kind of like, oh, why'd you
Why'd you have to end it with kissing and stuff? Like, just let her be a badass. Yeah,
we're like 5 seconds from rolling.
Yeah,
rolling the credits here.
Not to mention, like, she gets the tar beat out of her. She gets fucking beat up by those cops.
She also beats the shit out of people.
But I'm saying after that, to then be like, let's dance. It's midnight. I'm like, let her go to the fucking hospital, Lenny.
Yeah.
Let her go to the fucking hospital. Just come on.
Underrated and wild movie.
Yes,
Seriously,
very much
wild
so.
movie.
Very much so.
I think ahead of its time. And again, I don't see no way this could be made today. It wouldn't be the same. It'd be made completely differently.
No, you would have to. Well, you could if you did some kind of a splintered like alternate world where the technology we have today isn't what we had, and we had that instead. That's the only way. Yeah. But great movie, wonderful revisit, definitely worth a rewatch. No reason why it flopped.
Other than maybe just bad timing, it came out against something else.
Yeah,
like
and literally my only complaints are things that I would have wished more for.
They're just nitpicky.
It's not that the stuff that happened instead was bad. Like I said, I just think because of things like Black Mirror, we're so used to these premises of like, hey, this thing exists.
This didn't exist though.
Right. Exactly. Other than in the mind of people like Philip K. Dick. Like those are the only people
and James Cameron.
Yeah. No, obviously.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That was, again, I think a truly forgotten gem.
Yes.
So please like and subscribe. Join us. Next week, we are going to do that one scene from Alien. Chest bursting scene. Be ready for it. This was a fan recommend. John, we're coming for you. So join us. And thanks for watching.
Bye, you guys.